if you're under 25 years old and if you commit a felony murder, you should not get the full sentencing of the law. It sends the wrong message. All these things need to be addressed as you talk about background checks to send a message say lawlessness is never going to be accepted in this country. More background checks is the issue. There needs to be a more thorough job of background checks. And I don't think, and I know my nephews, my family members who are shooting, who are teenagers.
And you're from the South, and that's what happens. That's a rite of passage in the South.
I think we need to take another look at 18 and 19-year-olds having gun license. If you look at the demographic, you need to look at that. When you're 21 years old, you're a grown man. And listen, you must have a way to make sure that you go to the firing range to practice firearms training. The other thing is, you got to deal with this issue of alcohol, serving alcohol at bars, and when people are intoxicated, they can be inebriated, and when people are not in their minds, because oftentimes a lot of this has to do with in the moment, and people don't have their full capacity. So I'm getting to the issue of mental illness, but I will tell you this, even April, if you put all those measures in place, the matter will still get progressively worse. Why? Because we're seeing times that we've never seen before. I mean, you have laws on the books where you can steal something on $1,000, you won't be arrested. You don't make young people responsible anymore. You don't want to hold them accountable for the poisoning of America with fentanyl. I think a lot of this has to do with the law. The law tells you, and especially even in Maryland, when they were trying to pass a law, if you're under 25 years old and if you commit a felony murder, you should not get the full sentencing of the law. It sends the wrong message. All these things need to be addressed as you talk about background checks to send a message say lawlessness is never going to be accepted in this country.
So years ago, I traveled to Switzerland, and some of the people who were there for the young leaders trip to Switzerland. And they're like, oh, we'd love to take you shooting, hunting. And they said, oh, I would love to put an AK-57 in your hand. I'm like, what? I mean, I'm like, why do you need that to shoot Bambi? One. Two, I remember coming to town 26 years ago, it was the gun show loophole. Now it's ghost guns, right? Guns that you can't trace. And a large problem in a lot of these metropolitan urban areas, like Baltimore, you don't have gun shops, but you have a rise in the rash of gun shootings in that city, right? And non-traceable guns, a huge issue as well. Talk to me about the ghost guns and these cities like Washington, D.C. that don't have shops, but yet you're seeing a rise in the number of shootings, fatal shootings in these cities.
You're only making my point. When you can go to a printer and print a gun and create a gun that's untraceable, it's just another way that these criminals and this element get around the laws. And when the government enforces that and wrap themselves around it, they will create something else. The main thing you need to do if that is someone commits a crime, because listen, here's the problem, here's the real issue here, April. 80% of those that commit the crimes are the repeat offenders. You just got to make sure that they never have access to guns, and you got to make sure you put them away. And you got to put them away for a long time, because the sentencing laws have shown that if you put someone away for an average of 8 or 10 years, when they actually come out of that prison, 70% of them don't repeat those same crimes. They learn from, and you need to have real rehabilitation for these criminals while they're inside the jail, which is sometimes what you must make their time.
But this nation has a high recidivism rate. Let's just be real. The nation has a high recidivism rate, and the stats that you're saying, that's like idealistic. That's not normally the case. The rehabilitation doesn't normally happen like that. There is a high recidivism rate, Armstrong.